So for those of you I haven't met yet, I'm Craig, and my family and I, we've been coming here for about 5 months. And can I just say that I'm convinced that this place is a miracle. And the reason I say that is because for the last 18 years, I've been trying to find you. I've been trying to find a place where I feel like I belong. And it's been hard. My wife says I'm like super picky, which I am. And, I've dragged her to like tons of different churches across California. But, as I've sat here, as I've talked with you, as I've worshiped with you, I kind of feel like I'm home. And I just want to thank you for that. So, quick background. I'm part of an Asian American pastors cohort through Fuller Seminary, and you all are unwittingly a part of my final project. This is a worship experience that celebrates Asian American Heritage Month. So give yourself a hand being a part of it. So for this message today, I'm going to bring in a couple of Asian American voices. And I don't know about you, but like growing up and up to this point in my life, I haven't thought that much about being Asian American. But over the past couple years, I've started to crave wise Asian American voices. And so I've been reading books, I've been, listening to sermons, even watching chefs. Has anyone here seen this show on Netflix? It's called Culinary Class Wars. Raise your hand if you have. That show is so good. It's like a reality battle show where they use cooking, and whoever makes the best dish moves on, and whoever doesn't gets kicked off. But anyway, it's based in Korea, but they invited this guy who's a famous chef in Kentucky, and this guy, I don't want to spoil it for you, but he made it pretty far in this event, and there was just something about him that felt wise. And so I ended up getting his autobiography and reading it, and just really appreciating Asian American wisdom, if there is such a thing. And I found this Asian American wisdom also in another kind of unexpected place, and that was in a book by a guy named John Chu. Now, you might not know John Chu's name, but you definitely know John Chu's work. Yes. Have you, raise your hand if you've seen or at least heard of Crazy Rich Asians? Okay, John Chu directed that. And now, raise your hand if you have seen or heard of the movie Wicked. John Chu directed that too, right? And it's weird because you don't think of that as like, oh, an Asian American guy is behind that spectacle, and yet that is the case. He also did In the Heights, so it's amazing. There are Asian Americans that we can look up to, and one other Asian American voice I'm going to bring into my message today is this woman named Cindy Lee, and Cindy Lee came to our pastoral cohort. And when I was listening to her, something just was moved in me. It was almost like I was seeing an Asian monk or something, without the robes and the asceticism, but someone who had deep, formative experiences with God. And I'm going to share some of her wisdom as well throughout this message. So let's go to Crazy Rich Asians. So my favorite line from Crazy Rich Asians is Ken Jeong during the dinner, if you guys recall. he shouted out, he gave a shout out to Fullerton. I don't know if you know this. He's like, because at first he was pretending to have an accent, and then he's like switched back to his American accent. He's like, I'm just kidding. Graduated from Cal State Fullerton, majored in thought. Right? That's not a real major. But you could tell he was totally ad-libbing it. But it was so cool and so funny. But, despite the comedic elements, there was also a very heavy storyline and plot line throughout, and it centered around this idea of identity. And Crazy Rich Asians, if you haven't seen it, it's about a woman, an Asian American woman named Rachel, who travels to Singapore with her boyfriend and discovers on the way that he's crazy rich, and discovers on the way that his crazy rich family disapprove of their relationship. And it's her kind of struggling through her identity, who she is. Is she Asian? Is she American? What is she? And so John Chu wrote a memoir, and I'm going to read an excerpt right now because I think it really speaks to kind of this dilemma, I guess, that Asian Americans face. So I'm going to read a passage to you now, and this scene, it sets up a dramatic encounter between Rachel and her mother-in-law, Eleanor. Eleanor does not like Rachel. Eleanor does not want Rachel to be dating her son. So this is from director John Chu's perspective. He says, as Michelle, Constance, and I rehearsed on the staircase, it felt like we were on stage. Many of the actors who had just filmed the dumpling scene had stuck around to watch. Eleanor, the mother-in-law, walked up the stairs. She adjusted a photo of her family. She talked about her engagement ring. She told Rachel about the years of work and sacrifice it had taken for her to be accepted by her mother-in-law. And then she made her move. Eleanor approached Rachel, forcing her back down one step. From the high ground, she delivered the line we had worked so hard to find. You will never be enough. She said it with such contempt, in a way that cut so deep that Constance immediately burst into tears. Dozens of people silently went, oh no. We could see how much it hurt. We could feel it. We reset to film a few more takes, but before we got very far, Constance turned to me. How many times do we have to shoot this? Because I can't stop crying. We'd gotten what we needed. In fact, I felt while watching it, this is why we made this movie. Eleanor's line and Rachel's reaction expressed what I hadn't been willing to express before and had rarely seen expressed by anybody else. When you grow up the way I did, torn between Asia and America, trying to shed what you are, trying to be what you're not, the world can make you feel worthless. You're not Asian enough. You're not American enough. You're not smart enough. You're not talented enough. If you're an Asian man, you're not attractive enough. And then louder than all the rest, you don't belong here. The most powerful part of this passage for me is when the actress, Constance Wu, turns to the director and asks, how many times do we have to shoot this? Because I can't stop crying. And that's kind of surprising to me because I'm like, well, you're acting. Like, why should it cut so deep? And I think the answer to that is because those words, you'll never be enough, lay bare our deepest, darkest fear. In Asian culture, there's another word to describe what it feels like to feel like we're not enough. It's called shame. As a child, I had a secret. I didn't want anyone to know, because if they knew, they would tease me. If they knew, they would think I was different. And there was nothing worse than being different. But then, one day, my greatest nightmare unfolded. My friend Patrick came up to me with a strange grin on his face. "Oh my gosh, Craig. I heard from your mom that you're adopted." I froze. I immediately denied it. "Well, that's what your mom told me." It's not true, I insisted, but after that point, word got out and everybody knew. I was devastated. I felt less than. I felt different. I was ashamed of my adoption and of my story. What do you do when you feel ashamed? What do you do when you feel like you're not enough? As for me, in moments of shame and darkness and not enoughness, I return to Psalm 139 to be reminded of what God says of me and who God says I am. Psalm 139, verses 13 through 16 says, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place. When I was woven together in the depths of the earth, your eyes saw my unformed body. And all the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be." I don't know about you, but when I read this passage, I feel like there's such an intimacy there. There's such an intimacy to this creative act of God. This image of God knitting us together in our mother's wombs, for me, is so achingly beautiful. God was intimately involved in our creation. And you don't just see tenderness here, but you see intention. Before you were born, God imagined you. He delighted in you. He dreamed dreams for you. And I dug into the Hebrew of these words, fearfully and wonderfully. The word wonderfully in verse 14 is translated from the word Paula, the Hebrew word Paula. It means to be distinguished, unique, set apart. And the word fearfully is translated from the Hebrew yare, which means to cause astonishment and awe. So what does that tell me? Not only are we unique and distinguished from every other person, but that we were created to inspire awe in people. So a few months ago, I don't know if you guys do this, but when I'm bored, I look at YouTube, looking for the latest and greatest interesting thing to watch. And so I found this video. It's a Korean video. It has 22 million views. But it has these teenage kids, these young teenage kids, and they're sitting in a karaoke room. And unbeknownst to them, they've been set up because a guy comes in. He's dressed up like a Korean businessman, but in fact, he's like a K-pop star. And he's like, "Hey, is it okay if I, sing a song before I go back to work?" And the kids are like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." So he sits down and, as he starts singing, something changes in the room, right? These kids realize in that moment that they are in the presence of greatness. And I just found myself studying their faces. And what I saw on their faces were awe, amazement. And as I watched, something happened in me. I began to cry. I was like, why am I crying watching this video? And I realized it wasn't just because this guy's voice was amazing, which it was. But even deeper than that, I was moved by this experience of awe that these kids were having. Like, I was moved that they were moved. And then I realized something in that moment. To be floored by something that inspires you is a transcendent gift. The Hebrew word for fearfully, yare, carries with it the connotation of reverence. So it's not just amazing, it's not just astonishing, but it carries with it, the way I like to put it is, it has the smell of God on it. You can't help but be moved. And I believe that this feeling of awe is proof of God. When you feel awe, what you're really experiencing is God's presence. It's as though God is saying, look what I made. Isn't she amazing? The desire to bring this sense of awe and wonder into the world was front and center when God made you. So you might think, well, this doesn't apply to me. I can't sing. Have you seen me try? It's really bad. But I wonder, can your life sing? Can the beauty of your soul be expressed in the things that you do? Can you bring a sense of awe and wonder into the world by the person you are becoming? I think sometimes we just haven't uncovered the awe-inspiring things God has tucked away into our souls. And often it takes a long journey of suffering and patience to get to a place where you can see it clearly. It reminds me of a passage in Genesis in which God calls Abram. So in Genesis 12, 1 through 3, it says, the Lord had said to Abram, go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all the peoples on earth will be blessed through you. So notice that God promises he will make Abram a great nation, and it's his intention that all peoples on earth be blessed by him. But I wonder if Abram was who he needed to be in that moment to bless the whole world. I don't think he was. In verse 1, the author uses the Hebrew words lek, lekah, that our Bible simply translates as go. Now, the author could have used different words, but the words lek, lekah, rather than talking about a geographic journey from point A to point B, it connotes a different kind of journey. Lek, lekah means go, journey to yourself. So this journey that God was inviting Abram into wasn't just moving from one place to another, but it was going on a journey to discover who he really was. So to become who he was meant to be, Abram had to go on a journey to himself, and it did not come without a cost. Because the only way that he could become who God wanted him to be, or meant for him to be, was by leaving everything that he thought he knew about himself. When I began following Jesus, a great healing began. So I talked about my moment with Patrick, who my mom calls my lying, conniving friend, which he was. That was a moment of deep, where I experienced deep shame. But when I started following Jesus, I realized for the first time how dearly loved I was. And that shame began to melt away. But that didn't happen in an instant. It didn't even happen after a year. or 2 years or 5 years. It took decades for me to fully process what this all meant. My biological mother was only 22 when she became pregnant with me, and she decided to keep it a secret. And what that meant for her was she had to move 100 miles away from her home, from her family and friends, and everything she knew to have me. Now, she could have done the easy thing and ended my life then and there. But there was something inside of her that said, no, I'm not going to do that. This baby deserves a chance to live. So she moved 100 miles away so she could have me in secret and put me up for adoption. But meanwhile, there was a gynecologist named Dr. Kikuta who'd been doing hundreds of abortions in the 70s and early 80s. Or no, sorry, just the 70s. And there's something in him that was just getting torn apart. There was something in him that told him that this was wrong. And he realized that the reason he was doing so many abortions is that adoption was just not a thing in Japan. And it was not a thing in Japan because there was a stigma. There was a stigma. If it wasn't your biological family, there was a stigma to adoption. And so he came up with this crazy idea to forge birth certificates to make it seem like the biological parents were adopted parents. He put his medical license on the line, but there was something in him that said, if I can save babies doing this, I'm going to do it. And so he saved hundreds of babies this way. Meanwhile, across the Pacific Ocean in Los Angeles, there was a third-generation Japanese couple who desperately wanted a child but couldn't have one. And they had looked into all the local adoption agencies, and for whatever reason, it just wasn't happening. And then they heard somehow that in Japan, it was possible to get a little baby. And so, this couple had never been to Japan. This couple it probably did not occur to them to ever go there. And yet, they wanted a baby so very badly that they were willing to try anything. All three of these stories had to converge in perfect harmony for me to be here today. And I'm going to tell you the most amazing part of this story that kind of set fireworks off in my soul. So a few years ago, I Googled Dr. Kikuta, the gynecologist who did my adoption. And I learned that a few years after my adoption, he became a Christian. And that might not seem like so amazing in our current, in our culture, in our American context. But in Japan, that's a big deal because there's fewer than 1% Christians in Japan. So for him to find Jesus was a miracle. And in that moment, I realized the activity of God in my story, that it was him that created that ache in Dr. Kikuta's heart. It was him that held my biological mother's hand back from doing the easy thing. It was him that connected my parents to this agency halfway across the world. I'm in awe of what God has done. And my story has become proof of God to me. My parents are here today. They are They are the physical representation of God's faithfulness in my life. They are the kindest, most generous, most unconditionally loving people that I know. And they still celebrate me, who I am, who I've become, and who I'm still becoming. What's the story you've been telling yourself that you need to leave behind? What's the lie that you need to push away so you can embark on the sacred journey to yourself? So I'd like to close with a quote by Asian American theologian Cindy S. Lee. She says, we began not when we were born, but when God first imagined us. Our spiritual lives are the cyclical journey of becoming that person God first saw, still sees, and will always see in us. In a cyclical formation, we are never incomplete or insufficient, but along the way our visions become distorted as we try to conform to the social expectations around us. We might lose sight of who we truly are. And on those days when I could no longer see myself clearly, I enter into the space I share with God and I ask, God, when you first imagined me, who did you see? And there's so much I love about this quote, but I love that it says that the creation process happened first in God's imagination. Even before he knit you together, he imagined you. And then she writes, we are on a journey of becoming that person God first saw, still sees, and always sees in us. While you might feel the acute pains of your not enoughness, God sees you as complete, whole, and perfect, not in the future, but in this moment. But my favorite part of this quote is at the end, where she says, when you first imagined me, who did you see? So I'd like to invite you now into a moment of stillness and silence. Let this be a sacred place between you and God. You might want to ask God the simple but powerful question, God, when you first imagined me, who did you see? Take a deep breath and just listen. No pressure to hear anything dramatic. Just be open to whatever God may stir in your heart. And I'll close this in prayer after a minute. God, when you first imagined me, who did you see? I pray that in the midst of things that happen to us, that make us feel less than, or like we're not enough, or that we should be ashamed. I pray that you would speak love over us, that you would speak into our lives and tell us what you see. what you first imagined even before we were born. Would you bring us to a place where we can see ourselves as you see us? Even if it takes going on a journey that maybe we don't want to go on. A journey of pain and suffering and trials. Pray you would still bring us on that journey, because we know that on the other side, you'll give us a new name. That on the other side, you'll give us a new perspective of who we are and who you always intended us to be. As we celebrate Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, we all think about our own unique heritages, and some of us have, it's a mixture of joy and also some scars. And God, we bring all of that to you. We bring all of our experiences, and lay them at your feet, and ask that you would help us to understand how to bring every part of us into the world, to bless it, to show the world how awesome and awe-inspiring you are. Would you use each life in this room to point to you? We're grateful for this moment of silence where we can just sit before you and listen to you. And hear your words of love spoken over us. Amen.